Hi, my name is Erica Bugby. I'm a partner here at Pransky and Associates, and I'm going to be talking about how people can get more neutral and more clear about the bigger things that they struggle with in life. One of the things that we notice about people is that there's certain things that we struggle with, the bigger things that we struggle with, kind of ongoing, that that a few things happen regularly, and that they're the things that we struggle with about certain situations or about certain issues tend to be repetitive. So the same kind of situation keeps happening over and over again. It plays out the same way, even though it keeps happening, and it should be, and it's predictable that we're going to keep running into the same kind of problem. We're not any more prepared than the last time we struggled with that. And the other thing that happens is that there's not a lot of a learning curve. We just don't learn over time. So the issue does not get any easier for us. In fact, a lot of times either it just stays the same, which is maddening, or it gets worse over time. Even though we have a lot of opportunity to kind of correct or learn, there's not a lot of learning that happens oftentimes about certain things. And one example I'll use, we just had a mom that was here. She has a teenage daughter, and her daughter she just has a lot of trouble with her daughter. Her daughter gets into legal trouble. She's involved with drugs. There's constantly incidents that's happening, or she gets into a fight with her daughter, and things get really ugly, and it spills over into the mom's life. So every time there's an incident, not even that involves the mom, but every time there's an incident with the daughter has kind of an emotional breakdown. The mom it takes over her life for a couple of days, and it's distracting. It weighs her down, and she ends up being either desperate or frustrated, and it happens every time there's an incident. That happens, and it kind of derails her life, and then she has to kind of get over it, and it happens regularly. And one of the things that changes how things play out for people is we call reflection, which is, it's really just a fancy way of talking about what happens when people have hindsight. When you look back on something, a lot of times I'll buy something and there's only one of them, so I feel like I should buy it, and then I get home and I kind of like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? A lot of times you look back and you have some you see things different, and or people say, when I in retrospect, here's what I saw. All they're talking about, all that happens for people when they talk about retrospect, is that they reflected. They took a second look at something that happened, and that's what I'm calling reflection. And it's something that we don't do a lot of. People don't do a lot of around the issues that they struggle with chronically. It's the one thing they need the most reflection about, and for the most part, people are kind of running scared about that. They're kind of white knuckling through the situation every time it happens, and they're just busy trying to get over it and get back into their life, and they don't really stop and think about it, either because they just are trying to clean everything else up, or they just don't want to think about it because it bums them out. So there's very little retrospect, hindsight, reflection. There's very little of that, and one of the points that I want to make is that is to talk about why when you take a second look at something, why would that be any different from the first time you looked at it? But it's not. When you look back on something, it does look different, and I want to underscore that, because it's a really important point about people, that we're living in the way that people work. They're living in a constant flow of thought. We just have thought happening for us all the time, day and night, and it creates that's what creates our reality. the way things look for us, not the reality out there, but the reality that the way things appear for us, the way life looks for us, it is put together from the thoughts that we're having. So when you look at something one minute and you're really upset, or something happens and you feel like it's the end of the world, a few hours later, or maybe sometimes 10 minutes later, at some point, you look at it again, it looks like, okay, I can handle this. And it looks completely different, and the situation hasn't changed at all. And that's because your thinking is changing constantly, and you have a different batch of thinking. And so life appears different. Essentially, your reality is changing constantly because your thinking is changing constantly, and every reality you're in looks real for us. That's how thought works. So that's why when you take a second look at something, you don't know what you're going to see. It's not going to look the same way that it looked the first time. And I want to highlight that, because people will look more if they think they'll see something different. And so one of the things we have going for us as human beings is there's this intelligence. There's a bigger system that we're a part of that gives us thought 24/7, but that also has a resilience built into it. There's an intelligence that's built into this system that gives us ideas, perspective about things. We have instincts, common sense, creativity, so that when you're handling something, you won't have any ideas about it, and it'll feel like there's no options, and then at some point you'll see options. Options will appear because we have a steady flow of thought, and that thought brings us more intelligent thought. So we have a resource inside of us that feeds us more adaptable thinking than what we have right now, and it's always like that. So what this mom, for example, while she was here, actually there was an incident that happened while she was here in La Conner, and she would have she went to bed upset. She said normally that would have thrown her off for the next 2 or 3 days, because it was a significant event that happened. It was a huge setback for her, and she woke up in the middle of the night, kind of expecting to be overtaken by upset. And what happened is she thought about it, but because she was calm and she wasn't already upset when she was thinking about it, it appeared different to her. It looked like, there's not much I can do. There's not much I can do from here. I'm halfway across the country. And there's a point at which she's going to have to figure these things out for herself. And she just had a completely different look, and it was a very big picture look. And what she got when she looked again, when she looked at it when she wasn't upset, was more neutral and more clear. So instead of feeling a charge and an intensity when she looked at it again, she saw something that was she saw things from a more calm vantage point. It appeared that way to her. It looked like things were manageable instead of things are overwhelming and I can't handle it. So she could think on a less emotional level, and she saw things more clearly. So instead of feeling conflicted and torn and overwhelmed by it, it looked like, well, here's what happened, and here's what I can do and what I should do. So reflection is something that people can invite into their the things that they struggle about by taking a second look, by looking at things again fresh, when you're not just in the heat of the moment, but stopping at some point and looking at, okay, here's what keeps happening, or here's what just happened, instead of just getting back into your life and then waiting for the next one to hit, people can on purpose stop and look when they've calmed down and see, okay, what do I see about what just happened? Take another look at it, and oftentimes what you see is, well, here's what I could have done better. Here's an idea about how I could prevent that from happening, or this keeps happening. Maybe I should adjust the way I do things, and so that things stop being so repetitive, and you become more prepared, and there is a learning curve. All that happens because you get more neutral and more clear just by reflecting, just by stopping in retrospect and taking a look at what happened when you're not freaked out. Your intelligence will bring you a completely different set of ideas and thoughts that will help you adapt to your situation in a way that works out for you, and you'll actually get a handle on things more over time instead of having it be stuck for you or having it get worse. So I hope this has been helpful, and stay tuned, and we'll do more of these.